The refineries improve petrol supply. Will privatizing the refineries improve petrol supply? Last week, Melekiari, NNPC's group managing director, said government wants to privatize majority stakes in all its refineries. Now, of course, this comes just days after government announced an official end both to fuel subsidy and to price controls in fuel. And our big hard fact today is that according to the NNPC, its refineries did not refine any fuel in the year between July 2019 and June 2020. According to NNPC, its refineries did not refine any fuel in the year between July 2019 and June 2020. So for a whole year, the refineries had no output. By the way, in that period, they gulped more than 100 billion naira combined in operational costs. Now, according to the NNPC, the refineries were undergoing repairs during that 1 year period. So let's also point out that as of March last year, they were only working at 5.5% capacity. So clearly, no matter how you look at it, the refineries are not being run efficiently. And it's not a new situation. We've had this conversation a lot of times, especially on hard facts. Now, because of this, we have the NNPC finally saying maybe it's time to sell a majority share to private investors who may do a better job. That's what we're talking about today. Let's look at all the steps that the government is taking almost at the same time to deregulate the petroleum sector. Let's also talk about the possible short-term and long-term effects so that you can decide if these are the right steps or not. Here to talk about it is Osato Guobadia, who is an energy analyst for STEARS Business. Osato, thank you so much for joining us on Hard Facts.
Hi, Sandra. It's great to be with you.
Yes. Now, Lagos, as we go along, I want to hear from you as well. What do you think about government's plan to partially privatize its refineries? Do you think this will improve or worsen the fuel supply situation? Do you think government can run the refineries efficiently, or do you think it needs to go to the hands of the private sector? And what do you think about the moves in general to deregulate the petroleum sector? Our number is 0700-993-993-993. You can share your thoughts via WhatsApp. WhatsApp is 080-959-75825. Osato, before we talk about the refineries, let's talk about the removal of fuel subsidy and the deregulation of prices. This is a policy decision that many economists have advocated for years. How come it's finally happening?
Hi, Sandra. Thank you. That's a nice question. So, yes, you're right. Economists and international bodies like the IMF have been advocating for the removal of the subsidy, not just in Nigeria, but in other oil-producing countries. And so it's been difficult to do. Last year, the IMF came to Nigeria to advocate for the removal. And the Minister of Finance said, she agrees that the subsidy needs to be removed, but the timing can't happen now because Nigeria has to provide cushions for its citizens before it does that. And then luckily or unluckily, depending on the perspective, by March, the crude oil price had dropped significantly. So we were in a situation where the 145 naira per liter we were paying was even too much if you look at the fundamentals of the price. We're paying too much. So that was a good opportunity for the government to now remove the subsidy. And we're able to also reduce the fuel price at the same time. Just because the cost of importing petrol had reduced, they took advantage of that to actually remove the subsidy. Now, where the problem started was when the crude oil price went up, which we saw in August, and then the NNPC had to increase the petrol price as a result. That's when we saw the different agitations around the country.
But again, how come it's finally happening?
Right. So, according to the according to the NFPC GMD, Nigeria cannot afford to be spending 1.2 trillion naira per year subsidizing petrol. Right? It's always been a case of, okay, when is the right time to do it? We tried to do it in 2012 when, they thought it was the right time. Turned out it wasn't. The policy wasn't ready. The country wasn't ready for it. So the protest. And now that the crude oil price has dropped, we can afford to remove the subsidy, or we could in March afford to remove the subsidy, but still have low petrol prices for our people. Remember the last time in 2012 when President Goodluck Jonathan removed the subsidy, the price doubled. That was the impact of the removal. The price more than doubled. I think it was from like 60 naira to like 140, I think. I can't remember. But like now, the government saw that, okay, if we remove the subsidy now, the price will actually reduce. So we're not going to get those protests that we got in March. And so that's the reason why now. Really.
There's a suggestion that the IMF made this one of the unofficial conditions for their recent loan package. What do you think about that?
Yes, that's a very believable point of view. Okay. I think we saw the letter that the Minister of Finance wrote to the IMF. Okay. I think this was just before we requested for the loan, or just after. Where she stated clearly that, we've stopped paying subsidies. Like, that was one of the main points that she tried to make in that letter to the IMF. So definitely we have the coronavirus pandemic. It's weakened our economy. Government is going to have to spend. So there's one issue of, okay, government should not be spending money on subsidy. They should be spending it in other areas to boost the economic recovery. And the other angle is, okay, government doesn't even have all the money it needs to boost the economy. So we also need to go and get loans from organizations like the IMF. And so the removal of the subsidy was a way to kind of do both.
I see.
Kind of kill two birds with that.
With the same stone. Whenever we talk about removing fuel subsidy, one of the main arguments that some Nigerians raise against it, like you said, is timing. So they say government should wait until local refineries are able to meet the local demand before removing subsidy on imported petrol. What do you think about that argument?
Yeah, so these refineries, we've been struggling with them since, I heard your entry said 2019. Even in 2018, we were struggling with these refineries. I think it was Kaduna Refinery produced exactly 0 liters of petrol, while still gulping billions of naira in operational costs. So, if the concern is, okay, the GMD has said in the past they have tried to fix these refineries. But the problem was that they did not even assess, okay, what was wrong with them first, right? So that's trying to give you a scale of the problem we're dealing with. They don't even know what the problem was that they're going to fix. They're spending millions of dollars to fix it. So now the GMC has come in and said, okay, you know what, first things first, let's find out what is wrong with these refineries. So that is the process that they are currently on now. And then the next step is, okay, what do we need to do to fix it? Right. So this is not something that can happen overnight. Right. I would argue that, like, do we want to be spending billions of dollars, trillions of naira, subsidizing petrol in the meantime? Is that the best use of government funds? So I think that is why, especially with this coronavirus pandemic, I think that is why the government decided that, you know what, we have to remove the subsidy now.
Okay. Now, is the main argument against subsidies that we cannot afford them, or is the argument that they don't work, or is it both?
It's both. But when you say they don't work, so the reason for that argument is that, okay, let's start with the reason for the subsidy in the first place. Is to make life more bearable for the poor Nigerians. But then the argument is, the poor Nigerians are not driving cars. If they are, they're driving one car, but it's the richer Nigerians who are driving 3-4 cars, and are giving them subsidies that they don't even need. Right? That's one way the subsidy is is being wasted.
Okay.
The second way is, if you look at it, because we're subsidizing our petrol, countries like Cameroon are not subsidizing, or they're subsidizing to a lesser extent. So the price of petrol in those countries, in those are neighboring countries, is higher. So what people were doing was, what smugglers were doing, they were smuggling this petrol across the Cameroonian border, selling it, at a price just below the price of Cameroonian petrol, and making a profit easily. So the Nigerians, essentially, the federal government was subsidizing petrol for Cameroon. Right, so there's an argument that the way we're doing it now, the way we were doing it is not the most effective and efficient way to run a subsidy. But yes, there's also a point that we can't afford it, to be honest. We're looking at
every time Nigerians hear government is broke or we can't afford it, they go a little bit insane. So because they cannot seem to reconcile the large government we're running, the wastage when it comes to money, the huge allowances, if you like. That I always argue that even if you convert all of that allowance that we're paying to, say, lawmakers, for instance, it's still not. It still doesn't make that much of a difference in the large scheme of things. But Nigerians always want to tear you apart at the seams every time you say we can't afford it. What do you say to that?
And you can't blame them, because it comes down to a trust deficit problem. When the country doesn't trust, and that's what it comes down to, because the country is not. A lot of citizens don't trust that the government will actually use this subsidy to improve their lives.
Sorry.
So that is the problem. That is the problem that government needs to fix. Like, you save 1.2 trillion naira in subsidy payments. So Nigerians will ask you, how am I sure that most of that money is not going to be stolen? Right. So I think that is the problem that government needs to try to address when they are in this full subsidy removal issue. It's not just, they do a good job. They come on TV, tell us how it's going to be good for us, but that doesn't really help the common man. Let us know specifically what are the specific things that this money is going to be used for. Nigeria is not the first country to remove their subsidy. In Angola, the IMF came there, told them to remove their subsidy, and point blank they said, look, we're expecting a loan from the World Bank, and when we get this loan, we'll give it to our poorest people, right? So until we get that loan, we cannot talk about removing the subsidy, because we need to give them a cushion for this removal. Same thing in Iran. They distributed billions of dollars to their poorest citizens when they were removing the subsidy. So that is what the Nigerian government needs to be thinking about doing. Just get that trust factor sorted.
Now, some people made the argument that the presence of fuel subsidy and price control is discouraging investors from building refineries in Nigeria because they won't be able to compete with the price of subsidized fuel. What's your take on this particular argument?
Yeah, so I was talking to someone who's considering investing in the oil and gas sector.
Okay.
And I was telling me that, look, Petrol, no, he doesn't want to go there. Like, just seeing governments, for lack of a better word, pause all over the sector, it's too complicated.
Yeah.
Let's think of another business. Let's go to another country. And so that's what's happening. Now we remove the subsidies. We saw recently that government even went further to deregulate the sector by saying, they wouldn't be advising on the price of petrol anymore. So it's further than just removing subsidies. Before they removed the subsidies and then they said, okay, at the beginning of the month, we'll tell you what price you can sell petrol for. Now they've said, okay, you know what, you decide on what price you're selling petrol for. And these things are good steps to remove, they're good steps from the point of view of the investors looking into Nigeria, removing the red tape, removing the regulatory costs that investors will have to bear if they come into the country.
If you just joined the show, you're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Will privatizing the refineries improve petrol subsidy? On the show, talking to me today is an energy analyst from STEARS Business. His name is Osato Guobadia. And so far, we are talking about Nigeria's petrol industry. According to the NNPC, its refineries did not refine any fuel in the year between July 2019 and June 2020. I want to hear from you, Lagos, as Osato and I continue this conversation. What do you think about government's plan to partially privatize its refineries? Do you think this will improve or worsen the fuel subsidy situation? Can government run the refineries efficiently, or does it need the private sector to step in? What do you think about the moves in general to deregulate the petroleum sector? I told you when we started that last week, Meleki Ari, NNPC's group managing director, said government wants to privatize majority stakes in all its refineries. Of course, this is coming just days after government announced an official end both to fuel subsidy and to price controls in fuel. Osato, before I take my first call from Lagos, government is saying that fuel importers, distributors, marketers can set any price that they like. Now, I've heard critics who have pointed out that for importers, this is an empty promise because they don't have access to Forex from the CBN. Does deregulation of fuel imports matter, Osato, if fuel importers cannot get access to Forex?
Yeah. So the Forex matter is it's one pending issue. The GMD has said that, the CBN, the discussion with CBN on how to give importers access to FX at the same rate that the NNPC is selling that, which is 390 naira to the dollar. But but until that is done, it's difficult to say the market. It's difficult to expect importers to source their FX from the black market. NNPC would still be the only ones importing, at least in the near future, until we're able to get importers access to FX by the CBN. But also, it's also important to remember that the CBN is also trying to balance, Nigeria's scarce foreign reserves. All right, it's not like there's excess dollars for anybody who wants to come. So it's a complicated task they have. I mean, we heard recently about how the power plants, the Azura power plants, is going through financial difficulties because they cannot get FX from the CBN. So and it's not just them. There's numerous companies like this. So it's a challenge. It's a complicated challenge.
All right, let's talk about the refineries. Government after government, there's been a constant difficulty getting them to work. I'm going to ask you what you think the main reasons are for why that. But I'll take it for Lagos. 993. You can share your thoughts with us via WhatsApp as well. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., we're going to have a conversation about the upcoming Edo State elections. Don't miss it, right? 5 p.m., that's when that conversation will come your way. I'll have a representative from both of the major political parties who will be playing in the elections on Saturday, which is my birthday, incidentally. We have a few callers. 99.3, hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir. What's your name?
Yeah, thank you. This is Emmanuel from Ogun State.
Welcome, Emmanuel from Ogun State. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for me to privatize. I'm sorry about that at all.
Okay.
The problem is those in government, they will they will sell the refinery to their cronies. So we may not have much difference. And then how many times will this government remove subsidy? Because to me now, I think they have removed it about 2 to 3 times now. And I tell you before December, this government, they will tell you that they are going to remove subsidy again. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for calling us. 99.3. Hello. You're off, sir. What's your name?
My name is Mohammed.
Mohammed, welcome.
Yeah, I think my opinion is that the government stand for privatizing or selling the largest share of energy, I think is a good idea. What is most important here is if that can make it work. Because as it is now, the government seems not to be making serious income from the refinery. And when it starts it out, investors will come in, put in their money because they know they're doing it for profit making. They can always make it perform at optimal performance that will be able to use results. And government in return will get revenue from that and finance other aspects of our activity.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, then. Well, thank you for calling. I appreciate it. We'll take one more call. 99.3. Sorry about that. Let's take another call. 99.3.
Good afternoon, Sandra.
Good afternoon, sir. What's your name?
My name is Prince Y.S., calling from Amuwadofin.
Welcome to the show.
You see, number one, I think, in year 2006 or 7, OBG sold off our refinery for profit body. But where that comes in, he refines that decision. I think that's a big mistake on the part of the government. As it is now, the government can't build refinery as it is because we are expecting Privatizing refinery to come on board very soon. So when we talk of regulation, for me, I would have loved the federal government to wait till this private refinery come on board. As it is now, it is being a lot of pains to Nigeria. When you talk of increment of electricity, you talk of fuel, and as it is now, immediately fuel rise in international and full your rise in international market, it means our fuel we bring to the country, the price will go up. Even though it will go to the extent of 200 naira. And can we afford it? So that is my fear.
All right.
So for me, it's good to deregulate, but at the wrong time.
Okay. Deregulation, good. Timing, bad. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll have this conversation some more. You're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Osato Guobadia is an energy analyst for STEARS Business, and he's on the show today answering questions about Nigeria's petrol industry. I am Sandra Ezekwesili. WhatsApp is 080 959 75805.
Hard Facts will be right back.
Hello? Hello?
Welcome back to Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili.
Yes, we're back, Lagos. 29 minutes past 5. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili. I have on the show with me an energy analyst for STEARS Business, Osato Guobadia. Osato is talking to me about Nigeria's deregulation of the petrol industry. Will privatizing the refineries improve petrol supply? I'm asking that question because last week, Mele Kyari, NNPC's group managing director, said government wants to privatize majority stakes in all its refineries. This is coming days after government announced an official end both to fuel subsidy and to price controls on fuel. And I told you that according to NNPC itself, its refineries did not refine any fuel in the year between July 2019 and June 2020. So Osato and I have talked about a bunch of things, right? And before the break, I mentioned that we were going to have a conversation about why exactly our refineries have not worked. Government after government, year after year, there's a constant difficulty with getting them to work. What are the main reasons they haven't worked, Osato?
Hi, Sandra. So I think one of the major reasons, like the GMD said, was they were fixing it without actually first identifying what the real problem was, right? Yeah, they were just going head into fixing it without being sure. Actually, that's from the GMD's perspective. But I imagine it was a complicated. It was a complex series of reasons why we have not been able to fix it. The pipeline vandalism didn't help because where the pipelines are the way we're supposed to get the crude oil to these refineries, but then they keep getting vandalized. There's no. It's expensive to keep fixing those pipelines time after time, so that didn't help the situation either. Well, I think the government's move to try to privatize the refineries by selling majority stakes is a decent one. So they plan to run it under the NLNG model. And NLNG is one of our more successful government-owned companies. And the way it runs is, NNPC owns it in partnership with Shell, Total, and I think Ajip. So NNPC owns 49%, while the rest share 51%. So what that does is that it introduces a level of transparency and also efficiency because, while theoretically, these government institutions may not have a profit incentive. Those private guys have a profit incentive. They want to make sure that they are running their operations as efficiently as possible because they have returns to give to their investors. right? So if we are running a refinery under an NLNG model, I can assure you that you would not see a refinery bringing in 0 naira of revenue while spending billions on operational costs. That's not how a private company would run a business.
Next door, Niger Republic struck oil in 2011, Osato. Right now, they already refine enough petrol to meet their domestic demand, and they've even started supplying Nigeria. So clearly they're doing something right that we haven't been able to. What is it? What is it? What is it, Osato?
Yeah, it's odd. It's a general problem we've seen in institutions across the country. The maintenance problem. We found it difficult to maintain a lot of our assets, and our refineries are not an exception. Now the government is embracing private refineries, modular refineries, to help us, deal with the gap between the demand and the supply of petrol that we have. People are optimistic that I think the biggest one is Dangote, but there are a couple of other refineries that are planned in the next few years. So people are optimistic that this problem of us not being able to refine our crude in our own country, hopefully will become a thing of the past pretty soon.
We've got people who talk about a lack of technical capacity within government as well to get the refineries running. There's also lack of incentives. Some people even argue that it's a feature, not a bug. The fact that we haven't been able to get our refineries running is a feature, not a bug. It's on purpose, and it's not exactly rocket science that we can't figure out. But that you'd probably say that that's the realm of conspiracy theories, Osato.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that because it's difficult to analyze that. But what I will say is, typically these refineries are not, they're not fixed in-house, they're not maintained in-house. Generally, we get, a reputable engineering company to come to look at it. I think for one of the refineries, I can't remember which one, but the government has said that they want to get the people who actually constructed the refinery to come and, find out what diagnosed the problem. Since we have been unable to do that for so long. So the problem with lack of a technical capacity in our government, in the oil and gas sector, I'm not sure it's something that holds much weight. But clearly there has been a series of problems because government after government we have not been able to fix these refineries. So what we saw now in the Port Harcourt refinery, for example, the GMD has transferred Mr. Ahmed Diko, who he's now the MD of the Port Harcourt refinery, but he has not worked in the refinery before. He spent the most part of the past decade working in the liquefied natural gas, LNG, not refinery. So we're bringing an outsider there. So if you say it's a feature and not a bug, and that the people there want it not to work, that's why it's not working. Okay, now we have someone new. We have a new head who has no affiliation with the refinery before now. I think it started work in March of this year. So I'm not saying that people who are saying it's a feature are not a bug. I'm not saying they're wrong. Okay. I'm just saying it's difficult to analyze. But in any case, there's a partial remedy has been put to that effect. The MD of the Port Harcourt refining company, and 2 of our 4 refineries are in Port Harcourt. So hopefully he's able to engineer the rehabilitation successfully.
As recently as the last presidential election, and I talked about this last week, we had the opposition candidate saying that he wanted to privatize part of NNPC, including the refineries. The administration opposed it at the time. I remember the administration and their supporters made it into this big thing, Now we hear the administration talking about selling majority stakes in the refineries. what has made this policy shift happen in the space of 2 years, Osato?
Right. So what is clear is that in the oil and gas sector,
Less than 2 years, sir.
in the oil and gas sector, at least in 2020, a lot of the big decisions have been driven by money. Right, just the fact that the revenue that NNPC is giving to the federal government has reduced, and and the government is trying to buffer up that revenue. So if the option of the investors coming in to fund the rehabilitation of the refinery, that is, government needs more money. They'd rather not spend money doing it when they can get foreign investors or private investors to come and fund that rehabilitation. The same thing we saw with their decision to sell marginal oil fields this year. It's something that has been pushed for a number of years. So these are the marginal oil fields are the fields that the IOCs, for one reason or the other, have not yet developed, and the idea that they should be sold to Nigerian operators to run them. This has been delayed time after time. But this year we saw quickly they initiated the process to sell those marginal oil fields. And one of the reasons they gave was because of the revenue shortfall. They were criticized at the time because this is not the best time to buy or to sell oil and gas assets, right? Because the money you get from them is less, right? Because the output for oil is not looking as
good.
If
Yeah,
oil
exactly.
was selling for $100 a barrel. Exactly. So they were criticized for that, but they said that look, now we need revenue. We need revenue now. So the same thing with the refineries. They're not going to say no to private investors coming in. Forget what they said during crazy campaign election season. Now it's time to govern. I think that is a bit different.
We have somebody who's saying, who's asking the type of money, technical know-how, and the expertise that the federal government doesn't have that will warrant them sell the biggest oil facility to those that will want to exploit the masses, just like the discos in the power sector are doing. They shouldn't give them out to private companies. What do you say to that, Osato?
So I would agree with the person on just only one point, which is we need to know who these private companies are. I think that's important. Besides the cronyism, which is the reason I think the author is alluding to, there's also the problem of whether these people are able to thrive under the NLNG model. So the reason why the NLNG model is working so successfully, one of the main reasons, is that we're dealing with companies who know Nigeria well. We're dealing with Shell. Shell has been with us since we found oil. Right? Total. These are companies that know Nigeria well. They know the sector well. They're not going to be scared off. They understand the risks. They understand how to manage them. So if we say we're going to run the refineries under the NLNG model, are we going to get partners like those who understand the Nigerian environment well? Or are we going to get new investors coming in who don't understand what's going on?
Are we going to have new investors? I ask that because, the refineries have produced almost no petrol in the last year. And before that, they were at less than 6%. So how easy will it even be to find investors ready to buy refineries that are basically non-operative?
It will not be easy. For sure, we'd have to sell it at a discount to what we would have been able to sell it had they been working properly, and if there weren't any pipeline vandalism issues, right? Because who wants to buy a refinery when the source of the feed keeps getting damaged time after time? It's going to affect your revenue and your profits. So yeah, for sure, that's the question we're asking. Who are the people going to buy it? Are these people who know about these problems, who have experience with these problems, or will they be surprised? The author alluded to the problem with the electricity. And that's one of the problems the discos had. They had the paperwork, everything before they bought the assets, and then they came in, saw the situation on ground, And they were saying that, look, this thing is worse than we thought. It's way worse than we thought. So that, I mean, that points, one thing that points is better due diligence. But a second is having people who understand the Nigerian environment. The government has to be thinking about that as a criteria. Even if we don't know the people who are going to buy these refineries or invest in these refineries, I think government needs to tell us, okay, what is the criteria that you're going to evaluate the people who bid for these refineries?
All right, let's take your calls. 0700-993-993. One thing I know is that a lot of Nigerians are worried about the price of fuel going forward, as well as the availability of fuel, right? They're worried that without a price band, the importers, the marketers, the distributors will crank the prices very high. I wonder what you say to that, but I'll come back to you, Osato, after we take 2 calls, right? 99.3. Hello. Hello. Sorry about that. Call us back if you can. Hello.
Hello.
How are you, sir? What's your name?
Yeah, Ruben from Yaba.
Ruben, welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah. On the refinery issue, you know, they were supposed to sell it to Dangote, I think around 2013 or so. I think for about $500 million. And then somewhere along the line, Adua government cancelled that contract. So, and there was something I read in international relations. I don't understand why they don't know the reason why the refineries are not working. Is it that, I don't know, I want to believe that maybe it's either British or American companies that built it, and after they built it, they now decided, maybe because they are selling oil to us, they now decide not to come and repair it. Because Russia cannot come and repair it. Germany cannot come and repair it. Once a major power builds something for you, another major power cannot come and repair it for you. So it is up to that company that is based in that country to come and repair it. It's up to that government of that country to come and help you repair it. That's what also we're also happy with the Ezekwesili steel problem. The Russians that repaired it, the Americans cannot touch it. That's the way it is. So this is the problem that we are facing. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Ruben, for calling us. We appreciate it. Osato? Osato, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So back to the question I was asking earlier on. What do you say to the Nigerians who are worried about price gouging?
Right. So, like we said, the PPPRA would not be fixing the price. But as far as we know, the PPPRA would still exist as a body. Their job is to regulate the price of petroleum products. Literally, the most important thing that they are here for is to ensure that the marketers are not gouging the prices of petrol. So even though they are not setting the price, they are still theoretically going to be looking out to make sure that the prices are they're not exploitative. So theoretically, that's their function. It's not easy to do because even with the price band of we still heard of some retail stations selling petrol above the regulated price. It's not easy to do, but PPPRA is there to do exactly that.
Yeah, but they're not regulating prices anymore. The band has been cut, so to speak. So do they still have a job?
So, right. What we heard about PPPRA was that the new PI bill would have, there's another agency which we don't even talk about, which is the PEF, the Petroleum Equalization Fund, which ensures that the price of petrol you pay for in Lagos is the same as in Kaduna, is the same as in Edo State, even though obviously it's more difficult to transport petrol and it's more expensive for the marketers to transport petrol to Edo State than it is to transport in Lagos. But PEF ensures that everything is equal. So it's a similar function in terms of regulating the price to what PPPRA were doing. So those bodies will be merged after the PI bill is passed, hopefully this year. So in terms of if you look at the bill, it looks like there's still a role for PPPRA, just to ensure that the prices are still that we're not being exploited, right? we don't want a situation where retail stations are selling petrol for 200, where the fundamentals indicate that the price should be 130 naira, right? So PPPRA is there to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Okay. All right. We've got a message from Adebayo in Lagos who says, on the issue of our refineries being sold to private handlers and deregulation policy of the oil sector, what is so different from Atiku's position of selling the oil sector and the position of this administration? I don't think Atiku said he was going to sell the oil sector at any point. Sandra, who buys the shares? What happened in the power sector since its privatization? Have we started seeing steady power supply? Privatization of the NNPC is another ploy to hand over the NNPC, or whatever they call it, to their cronies. They might claim to be deregulating the oil sector in the interest of the poor masses, but the poor are the ones at the receiving end of all of this. This is because no matter how much you put up a liter of fuel for sale, the elites can always afford it. Nigerian political leaders have no interest of Nigerians at heart, period. You know, Osato, that brings me to another concern that Nigerians share quite a bit, right? They're worried about availability. We've talked about Forex before. Without government providing Forex to importers and subsidizing importers, there's a fear that a lot of importers will simply leave the business. Are you concerned about that as well, or is that not a concern you share? How concerned are you about it?
Yeah, so that's what we're seeing currently, right? I mean, if we go back to initially when this Forex challenges started, we had fuel queues around that time, mostly because NNPC was the only importer of petrol into the country. And so they were not able to import enough at the time to give all the filling stations. But what we've seen now is that NNPC has been able to ramp up its capacity to import petrol, whereas now, as we speak, they are the sole importers of petrol into Nigeria, right? So, but the issue is that they are doing it they're getting dollars at a price that only they can get, right? They're the only ones in that window, right? When other petrol marketers would also, if they would like to import, they have to source their forex on the black market, right? So that's the challenge. So it's as it stands today, NFPC is the only importer, and it looks likely to stay that way until we can deal with the forex challenge.
I see. Osato Guobadia, thank you so much for giving us your time on Hard Facts. Can you, in 1 minute, talk to me about your general outlook for the petroleum sector and for these new policies? What would you say needs to be done to ensure efficient supply in the sector? Somebody called in and said, don't be surprised, in December you'll hear yet again that they're that they're removing subsidy. I know you're asking yourself, so what's your outlook? Can you give me your outlook in 1 minute?
Sure. Okay. So in 1 minute, so what we're seeing now is that the crude oil price, because everything depends on the crude oil price. The crude oil price has been falling in September. It has been going down again. So in terms of, from the point of view of the government who is trying to ensure that subsidy is removed, that's good news for them. It's bad news for their revenue, but it's good news in the sense that the price of petrol is more likely to come down than go up again. Obviously, there's still the fact that we devalued the naira in that time, so that might still, push the price of petrol higher than it would have. But that's the trend we're seeing. The crude oil price is coming down.
Okay.
And so the subsidy, it might be a while longer before we hear that the subsidy is going to be removed again.
Okay. All right then. Osato, thank you so much for your time. Osato Guobadia is an energy analyst for STEARS Business. Thanks for your time, Osato.
Thank you, Sandra. It's great to be with you.
Okay. All right, Lagos. Let me give you a chance to win 10,000 naira on the show. Yes, we are out of time completely, so I cannot take your calls if you want to talk about deregulation. But I'm hoping that the things we've talked about, you took away one or two things. If you missed it or you joined late, Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili is available as a podcast on all your streaming services, Apple, Google, Spotify. We are everywhere. So search for Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili.
This is Just a Minute on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
To win today, you have to answer more than 2 questions. So far we are at 2. You need to answer more than 2, and that's how you win. 0700-993-993-993. Hello.
Hello.
Are you ready to play Just a Minute?
Yes.
Turn your radio off.
Okay.
Okay. What's your name?
My name is Philip.
Philip, your time has started.
This is Just a Minute.
Okay.
Question 1. On what day will the first schools, primary and secondary schools in Lagos, open?
On 21st.
21st is correct. For public schools, name one of the 2 secondary school classes that will reopen.
SS2 and SS3.
Who is the Justice Minister and Attorney General of the Federation?
Malami.
All court documents must bear the stamp and seal of what body?
Appeal.
Sorry?
LPA.
The body that sets the rules for professional conduct for lawyers is the General Council of the what?
NBA.
Which Lagos politician said he's a product of godfatherism?
Go ahead, yeah.
All right, well, congratulations. You are our winner today. Philip, stay on the line. Don't hang up. Stay on the line so that somebody will take your details. Lagos, thank you so much for being a part of today's show. Coming up is Conversations with Rufai. After that, Game On at 7. After Game On at 7, Freeze, Daddy Freeze, the one and only, brings you live and dangerous right here on your number 1 talk station. That happens at 10 every day. So I hope that you are having conversations with Freeze. He always has something live and something dangerous going on 99.3 Nigeria Info. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, Ezekwesili, Instagram, Twitter. Find me there, talk to me there. Let's chat about all the numerous things that I talk about on air. Don't forget, tomorrow, 5 p.m., we'll have a conversation about the Edo State elections. I'll have somebody from the APC and somebody from the PDP right here, and we'll talk about the issues that are important as far as this election is concerned. They just had a debate, and people had a lot of things to say about both candidates and the debate. So tomorrow, 5 p.m., that's going to happen. But if you miss it, don't worry. We've got a podcast, Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili. Those were Hard Facts, Lagos. Good night.
It's okay. That is okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. Let me explain. It's okay. She off your mic.
On 99.3 Nigeria Info, your mic is always on. Let's talk.